looking to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles. Welcome to ASEAN in Focus. We're coming to you live from Manila and Vietnam. Hello, Charlene.
Hello, I'm from Navaja, bringing you the news in the dynamic scene.
On today's headlines. Diplomatic sources said the UN Security Council will meet Friday with the minister from ASEAN Chair Cambodia to discuss the chaotic situation in Myanmar 1 year after a coup ousted leader Aung San Suu Kyi.
Of groups that on day that the National Capital Region NCR is now down to high-risk classification for COVID-19 from severe outbreak last week.
And the Philippine Statistics Authority announced Thursday, January 27, a 7.7% growth in the country's gross domestic product in the fourth quarter of 2021, bringing the full-year economic growth to 5.6%.
And the ASEAN Coordinating Committee on Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises launched the Asean Access Match, a business matching platform with a view to boosting trade within and beyond the ASEAN.
First in our news, diplomatic sources said the UN Security Council will meet on Friday with a minister from the ASEAN Chair Cambodia to discuss the chaotic situation in Myanmar 1 year after a coup ousted leader Aung San Suu Kyi. Cambodia currently heads the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, and its ASEAN envoy to Myanmar, Foreign Minister Prak Sokhonn, will attend the closed-door talks along with UN Special Envoy for Myanmar, Noeleen Heyzer, according to sources telling this to AFP. The minister is expected to report on the controversial visit to Myanmar in early January by Cambodia's strongman ruler Hun Sen, who met with the junta in the first foreign leadership visit since the general seized power last February. ASEAN is divided over the thorny issue of Myanmar, and debate has swirled over how the regional bloc, often derided as a toothless talk shop, can help bring Myanmar out of the crisis. Critics say Hun Sen's visit risks legitimizing the junta. During his trip, he did not meet with Aung San Suu Kyi, who was detained after the coup and now faces criminal and corruption charges. Myanmar has all the ingredients for civil war, according to Prak Sokhonn this month. ASEAN agreed in April to a 5-point consensus aimed at reversing deteriorating conditions in Myanmar. The junta accepted the plan, but it has had little impact, and the military continues to suppress dissent, sometimes violently. In a rare intervention on Monday at the UN General Assembly, Myanmar's Ambassador Kwao Mo-tun, who was sacked by the junta but remains in his UN position, urged the global body for help and protection for the country's population.
In a related news, Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Sen held online talks with Myanmar military leader Min Aung Hlaing on Wednesday. A Cambodian official said Hun Sen called onto the junta chief to implement the 5-point consensus agreed by ASEAN leaders last year and to facilitate first visit by ASEAN Special Envoy to Myanmar in the near future. Hun Sen also called on all parties in Myanmar to cease violence and urged Min Aung Hlaing to help distributing humanitarian aid in his country. Cambodia's strongman ruler Hun Sen flew to Myanmar earlier this month for talks with the junta, the first foreign leader to visit since the generals seized power almost a year ago. Myanmar has been in chaos since the February 1st coup, which ousted Aung San Suu Kyi's civilian government and ended the country's decade-long dalliance with democracy.
In another related news, Australian energy firm Woodside announced its withdrawal from Myanmar today, the latest company to head for the exit nearly a year after a military coup. The company has been operating in the country for 9 years. The Perth-based petroleum company operates multiple exploration and drilling sites in Myanmar, where a military junta last February unseated Aung San Suu Kyi's government and sent the Southeast Asian country into turmoil. The move echoes that of energy majors Total Energies and Chevron, which announced their departure last week.
In Thailand now, where they will start vaccination for kids aged 5 to 11 years old on Monday. Here's Jomer Baldo to update us on the COVID situation in Thailand. Jomer.
Hello, Charlene. Yes, that is correct. The Ministry of Public Health is now preparing for the first round of Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine to be inoculated to the youngers of over 5 million population. These are children aged 5 to 11 who will be vaccinated starting Monday, January 1st at the Queen Sirikit National Institute of Child Health. Children suffering from chronic diseases will be the priority. Dr. Opas Kankwinpong, the Department of Disease Control Chief, said that the agency has set up guidance on administration of the vaccine to children in this age bracket and even to those who will show strong side effects. Dr. Opas added that healthy children will be vaccinated at school if possible, while those who are not engaged in school system and children who are in poor health conditions will get the vaccine at a hospital. The second dose of Pfizer will be administered after 8 to 12 weeks, as studies have demonstrated that such interval effect to better protection against COVID-19. Dr. Opas further mentioned that Thailand is only the second country in Asia after Singapore to receive the Pfizer shots for children. The ministry has ordered 10 million doses of the mRNA-based vaccine, and over a third is expected to arrive in the first quarter of 2022. The vaccines for children, which require different preparatory procedures, will be labeled with orange to differentiate them from the adult versions. This move is expected to provide additional health guarantee among Thailand communities. Children, insisting that the vaccination is safe as few negative side effects have been recorded, primarily due to smaller amount of vaccine given. For Thailand's update on COVID-19 situation, the Public Health Ministry announced 8,078 new COVID-19 cases and 22 more fatalities during the previous 24 hours. Back to you, Charlene.
Thank you so much for your updates. Jomer, please stay safe out there.
You please stay safe too. Reporting live from EBC Thailand Bureau, I am Jomer Bundetbaldo, and we live in interesting times.
Back here in the country, the Octa Research Group said that the National Capital Region is now down to high-risk classification for COVID-19 from severe outbreak last week. Expecting NCR to be at moderate risk next week, according to Octa Research Fellow Group member Guido David, tweeting this on Wednesday. Data from COVID Action Now show NCR 7-day average cases is 6,280 for January 19 to 25, lower than the previous week's 15,782 cases. Its current average daily attack rate is 44%, while its 7-day positivity rate is 24%. Positivity rate is the percentage of COVID-19 tests performed that turned out positive in a certain area or region. Meantime, the region's reproduction number individuals a COVID-19 patient can infect is now down to 0.71 from last week's 2.06. The healthcare utilization rate in the region is now low at 48%.
Indonesia and Singapore expressed concerns over the situation in Myanmar and call for Naypyidaw to reach a durable and peaceful resolution. The two leaders also discussed issues related to economic and security cooperation as well as reopening of cross-border travel. Let's take a look.
Selain itu, guna mendukung mobilitas manusia yang aman, kedua negara saat ini sedang memfinalisasi kerjasama pengakuan vaksin dan penyelarasan interoperabilitas platform pelacakan dan perlindungan yang dimiliki kedua. Indonesia dan Singapura memiliki kesamaan pandangan mengenai pentingnya memperkuat kesatuan, cara kerja dan kelembagaan ASEAN agar ASEAN siap menghadapi berbagai tantangan di masa depan. Mengenai Myanmar, kita sangat prihatin melihat perkembangan situasi di Myanmar. Indonesia dan Singapura memiliki pandangan yang sama mengenai pentingnya pelaksanaan 5-point consensus. Konsensus ini merupakan keputusan ASEAN pada tingkat tinggi dan harus dihormati oleh semua.
Indonesia has resumed tourism travel from Singapore to Bintan and Batam. It implemented a travel bubble to Bintan and Batam, and Singapore will discuss with Indonesia how we can make this bidirectional. And we hope without taking too long. President Jokowi and I agreed to continue discussions also to expand air and sea travel more generally to more destinations in Indonesia. But we have to take into account the COVID situation and in particular the outbreak of the Omicron variant. We also discussed regional developments, in particular Myanmar, where the situation remains serious. We noted that no significant progress has been made implementing ASEAN's 5-point consensus since it was adopted in Jakarta in April last year. We are committed to help Myanmar reach a durable and peaceful resolution in the interest of its people. But it is essential for the ASEAN chair and his special envoy to engage all parties involved. We also need to see progress in the delivery of humanitarian assistance.
According to Channel News Asia, Mr. Lee said he and Mr. Widodo also reviewed the countries' ongoing bilateral cooperation, pointing out that the countries are strengthening institutional linkages to deepen financial cooperation. Singapore and Indonesia are also exploring new areas of collaboration, such as sustainability, the green economy, digital economy, and human capital development. Both countries also signed several other bilateral agreements on Tuesday. The finance ministries of Singapore and Indonesia signed a Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU, on financial and economic cooperation. The MOU covers traditional collaborative areas like customs cooperation and fiscal policies, as well as emerging areas like financial services, climate finance, and the digital economy.
And the news continues here on ASEAN in Focus. We'll be right back.
Sumbong ng isang babaeng biktima ng identity theft, inimbestigahan. Zapaterong may kapansanan na iniwan ang kanyang pamilya sa gitna ng pandemya, sinakuluhan. Mga kabataan nagbibigay ng libreng edukasyon sa mga batang kalye, ating kilalanin. At bangketa vendor na gumagawa ng mga laruang sasakyan mula sa mga recycled materials, inayudahan.
Sabado, alas 6 hanggang alas 7 ng gabi. Ito ang Responde, Mata ng Mamamayan.
Welcome back to the program. Voting 1606. The Senate passed on Wednesday a resolution concurring in the Philippines' ratification of the Arms Trade Treaty, or ATT, taking part in the global efforts to eradicate illicit weapons trade. Senator Aquilino Coco Pimentel, chairman of the Senate Committee on Foreign Relations, said the ATT establishes common international standards for regulating international trade of conventional arms and, in effect, addressing the illegal trade in conventional arms and preventing their diversion into the wrong hands. The agreement was adopted by the United Nations General Assembly back in April 2, 2013, with over 100 state parties at present. The Philippines signed the treaty in 2013, the first country in Southeast Asia to do so, according to Pimentel. The 1987 Constitution requires the vote of at least two-thirds of all members of the Senate for treaties and international agreements to be valid and effective. Under the ATT, state parties are obligated to take measures to prevent weapons from falling into the wrong hands. States involved in export, transit, shipment, and importation must cooperate and share information to mitigate the risk of diversion and take appropriate measures to enforce national laws and regulations implementing the provision of ATT, according to Pimentel. Countries must also develop export and import control systems for the trade in conventional arms. The treaty prohibits the transfer of arms, ammunition, parts, and components that would violate obligations under the UN Charter, the obligations of state parties under relevant international agreements, and if the items would be used in the commission of crimes, genocide, crimes against humanity, attacks against civilian, or war crimes. The ATT covers all conventional arms such as battle tanks, armored combat vehicles, large caliber artillery systems, combat aircrafts, warships, missiles, and missile launchers, as well as small arms and light weapons, including ammunition, parts, and components.
The Philippines is among the top countries in the world that are the most vulnerable to global warming in the world, according to UK-based Switch. In its latest study, the Philippines ranked 5th out of nearly 200 countries with an overall score of 9.59 out of 10. The score is based on the natural disasters experienced by countries, affected people, and the cost of damages. The data also showed that these disasters cost the Philippine economy $42.929 billion. This translates to $360.75 million in its cost annually between 1902 and 2021. The Switch said global climate change causes increased air and water temperatures, which lead to rising sea levels and higher wind speeds. These factors increase the frequency and intensity of natural disasters like prolonged droughts, wildfire seasons, heavy precipitation, supercharged storms, and flooding. Based on the analysis, the Philippines experienced a total of 671 natural disasters between 1902 and 2021. This includes 377 storms and 156 floods, as well as 40 earthquakes, 31 landslides, and 29 volcanic activities.
In other news in the region, at least 19 people have been killed in a clash at a nightclub in Indonesia's West Papua province, according to police, with most dying after the venue caught fire. One victim was stabbed. 18 more died in the blaze at the Double O nightclub in the city of Sorong. Let's listen in.
Dalam kondisi luka bakar semua, terbakar hangus. Sehingga kita mengirimkan tim DPI. Pak Kapolda sudah berkoordinasi sama Kapus Dokes Mabes Polri. Ada 3 itu tamu, yang lainnya karyawan. Pemain band, vokalis maupun karyawan di para Double O.
A fire erupted between 2 ethnic groups and involved machetes, arrows, and Molotov cocktails, according to Ahmad Ramadan, a spokesperson for the Indonesian National Police. The nightclub, a large red and white building, was left gutted by the blaze, and a burnt-out vehicle was seen lying on its side by the blackened entrance. Sorong, a gateway to the coral-rich Raja Ampat Islands, is the largest city in West Papua province, and it's also home to a major port. It's relatively quiet compared to other regions of West Papua, which has seen clashes due to a long-running insurgency between separatists and Indonesian security forces. Rebels have recently escalated their fight, targeting road contractors as well as schools and clinics they say have links to the military. Authorities have responded by reinforcing deployments of troops and police. Now, the province also shares a border with independent Papua New Guinea on the island of New Guinea, just north of Australia. A former Dutch colony, mineral-rich West Papua, declared independence in 1961, but neighboring Indonesia took control 2 years later, promising a referendum. The subsequent vote in favor of staying part of Indonesia, approved by the United Nations at the time, was widely considered a sham.
The Department of Justice announced on Wednesday that it has indicted 4 of the 5 individuals who were earlier arrested for being part of the Mark Nogoyo heist group, allegedly behind the hacking of the country's largest bank, BDO, which affected more than 700 customers late last year. Charged for violation of Republic Act 8484 or the Access Devices Regulation Act of 1998 and Republic Act 10175 or the Cybercrime Prevention Act of 2012 were Jerome Anthony Taupa, Nigerian national Ifesinachi Fountain Anakwe, Renalyn Panaligan, and Clay Reveliosa. The DOJ's Office of the Prosecutor General, on the other hand, referred for the conduct of further investigation for the similar complaint filed against the 5th suspect, identified as Chukwuneka Peter Nwadi, also a Nigerian national. Based on the NBICCD's complaint, the task of the suspects were compartmentalized, meaning they allegedly played separate roles to make the fraudulent transfers or illegal access of online accounts possible. The NBICCD also likened the group's modus operandi to money laundering activities, considering that after the hackers have illegally accessed the online banking account or banking system, they would transfer the money to a dummy bank.
In other news, 6-time MotoGP World Champion Marc Marquez will take part in next week's preseason testing in Sepang after recovering from double vision. That is according to his Honda team, announcing this on Wednesday. The 28-year-old Spaniard had been suffering from diplopia since an off-road training crash at the end of October. He then missed the final 2 rounds of the season and the Jeddah test session in December. He was given the green light for the Malaysia test on February 5 to 6 after riding first on a motocross track, then at the MotoGP circuits in Portimao and Aragon. A medical checkup last week confirmed the treatment a complete success, with Marquez now in a suitable condition to ride a MotoGP bike. Marquez missed the entire 2020 season and the first few races of 2021 due to a serious injury to his right arm sustained in another race crash. Despite continued weakness in the arm, he won 3 races to finish 7th in the World Championship last year. After Sepang, Marquez will head to Indonesia for more testing before the 2022 season gets underway in Qatar on March 6.
And Asean in Focus, we'll be right back.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo.
This week, tayo'y gagawa ng paella negra, gambas y chorizo, lengua pastel. Meron tayong co-host ngayon. Ito po ang anak ko, si good morning to all our kakusina.
Good morning, everyone.
The best part now is
My favorite part.
Ayan. Bigla siya nabuhay, ngayon lang siya nagka-energy.
Let's get it out! Saan ka na naman galing kagabi? Lagi na lang inuumaga. Kaya mo ba?
Medyo hindi maganda ang balitang sasabihin ko. Wala tayong bonus. Bakit masaya ka yata?
Malungkot po talaga ako, boss.
Wala kang respeto, Mr. Benny.
Oh, bakit ganyan ang forma niyo?
Sabi mo pupunta tayo sa pool.
Ayoko na may mag-asawa dito sa mansyon ng ating amo.
Hindi ko ba kayo yung amo?
Ako ang chief kasambahay sa mansyon.
Marami talagang malabo sa mundo.
Pupunta daw kami ng Amerika. Uuwi din kami ng hapon.
Balikan lang, ganun.
Magiging maulan sa may bandang bulbunan.
Labo, di ba?
Pinuyat mo pa ako. Iba naman pala ang gusto mo.
Sobrang labo, di ba?
Tig yung napanood kong movie.
Spider-Man! Kumakay ka rin sa akin!
Uli, si Spider-Man.
Handa na ba kayo sagutin ang tanong na, where na you?
Basta.
Pinahinig ako.
Kamaingay, ansya ng mga kalaban.
Tug, tug, tug.
1,001, 1,002.
Funniest nakaball videos.
Welcome back. Global growth is getting a downgrade as high inflation and the impact of the Omicron variant weigh on the forecast. That according to the IMF in its latest quarterly update to the World Economic Outlook report released on January 25 in Washington, D.C. IMF First Deputy Managing Director Gita Gopinath said that the global recovery is multi-speed and divergent, meaning that some regions and countries are performing better than others. But the bulk of the downgrade is due to increasing uncertainty in the U.S. and China. Take a look.
The IMF's latest World Economic Outlook therefore anticipates that while Omicron will weigh on activity in the first quarter of this year, this effect will fade starting in the second quarter. Other challenges and policy pivots are expected to have a greater impact on the outlook. We project global growth this year at 4.4%, which is 0.5 percentage point lower than previously forecast, mainly because of downgrades for the United States and China.
Well, in the case of China, we have a significant downgrade for 2020. So growth is projected to be 4.8% now. And the reason for that is, one, the weakness in the real estate sector. We're seeing continued retrenchment of investment there, and that's one of the factors. The second factor is the weakness in recovery in private sector consumption. That's because we are also expecting there to be more outbreaks, more frequent outbreaks. Well, I mean, I think they have done a good job in terms of communication, but I think the problem is going to get a little bit harder.
The IMF also said the Omicron variant of COVID-19 is creating an obstacle course for the global economy, which will slow growth this year. Let's watch this.
Supply disruptions still weigh on activity and are contributing to higher inflation, adding to pressures from strong demand and elevated food and energy prices. Moreover, record debt and rising inflation constrain the ability of many countries to address renewed disruptions. Monetary policy is at a critical juncture in most countries, where inflation is broad-based alongside a strong recovery, like in the United States, or high inflation runs the risk of becoming entrenched, as in some emerging market and developing economies and advanced economies. Extraordinary monetary policy support should be withdrawn.
The WEO baseline assumes the Fed will hike the benchmark interest rate 3 times this year and 3 in 2023. Inflation is expected to average at 3.8% in advanced economies and 5.9% in emerging market and developing economies in 2022 before subsiding in 2023.
Meanwhile, equity markets tumbled in Asia today following a late sell-off on Wall Street in reaction to a surprisingly hawkish turn by Federal Reserve boss Jerome Powell, who signaled the bank would begin lifting interest rates in March. After one of the Fed's most highly anticipated meetings for some time, he said the world's #1 economy was well on the recovery path, with unemployment largely under control, allowing officials to begin removing the crutches put in place at the start of the pandemic. Again, let's listen in.
Yet, and we'll make that decision at the March meeting. We'll make a decision whether to raise the federal funds rate. I would say that the committee is of a mind to raise the federal funds rate at the March meeting, assuming that conditions are appropriate for doing so. We have our eyes on the risks. A number of factors are supporting a decline in inflation, as I mentioned. Fiscal policy will be providing significantly less of an impulse to growth. We do expect this year, although we do expect now that it will come slower than we had expected and hoped, that there will be relief on the supply side. So that too should lower these supply side barriers, which are a big part of the story why inflation is high. In addition, monetary policy will be becoming significantly less accommodative. So I would not say that I would expect the supply chain issues to be completely worked out by the end of this year. I do not expect them, and I have not expected them. What I would say, and I have been saying, is that I expect progress to be made in the second half of this year, mainly. Progress, because we're not making much progress. If you look at a ton of metrics, you can find some that suggest that delivery times are shorter and inventories in some industries moving up. But overall, we're not making progress. The recent sharp rise in COVID cases associated with the Omicron variant will surely weigh on economic growth this quarter. High-frequency indicators point to reduced spending in COVID-sensitive sectors, such as travel and restaurants. And activity more broadly may also be affected as many workers are unable to report for work because of illness, quarantines, or caregiving needs. Fortunately, health experts are finding that the Omicron variant has not been as virulent as previous strains of the virus, and they expect that cases will drop off rapidly. If the wave passes quickly, the economic effects should as well, and we would see a return to strong growth. That said, the implications for the economy remain uncertain.
While a March hike has been penciled in by traders for several months, investors were spooked by Powell's apparent hawkishness as he refused to be drawn on a timetable for further increases nor its plans to unload assets on its balance sheet, which have helped keep costs down. Analysts said the fact that the bank appeared less moved by recent market losses indicated to traders a high bar for the so-called Fed put, referring to its willingness to backstop investors in times of trouble. The Fed's pandemic-era financial largesse of bond buying stimulus and record low interest rates helped the global recovery and fuel a 2-year equity rally. But the age of cheap cash is being brought to an end as the bank embarks on a fight to bring down inflation from a 4-decade high. Officials still believe that the price rises will be brought under control as economies reopen and supply chain problems abate, but the need to prevent them running away now is forcing them into an aggressive pivot. The meeting played out more hawkishly than we expected, according to Stephen Englander at Standard Chartered Bank. The policy board statement was largely as anticipated, but Powell emphasized upside risks to inflation, pointing to a steady pace of policy withdrawal, he said. Powell's comments sent Wall Street sharply lower from their intraday levels, and Asia followed the selling. Tokyo, Hong Kong, and Sydney shed more than 2%, while Seoul was off 3% with Shanghai, Singapore, Wellington, and Jakarta also suffering steep losses.
HSBC Vietnam has announced its commitment to arranging up to $12 billion of direct and indirect sustainable financing for Vietnam and corporate sector in Vietnam by 2030. The funding targets to support the Vietnamese government's aspiring climate goals and COP26 commitment to become a net zero economy by 2050. The bank, in its letter to the government of Vietnam, has expressed its plan to financially and expertly back corporates' promising and critical green and sustainable projects in Vietnam, which play a vital role in decarbonizing the country's economy. This forms part of HSBC's broader net zero pledge to help customers transition their business models and decarbonize by prioritizing $750 billion to $1 trillion in finance and investment by 2030. According to HSBC's report, tackling the next crisis, Ho Chi Minh City is among many cities in Asia besides Mumbai, Shanghai, Bangkok, and Jakarta that are being increasingly threatened by rising sea levels. World Bank also warned that Vietnam is one of the top 5 countries likely to be affected by climate change, adding the forecast that climate change will reduce the country's national income by up to 3.5% by 2050. For Vietnam to reach its net zero target by 2050, it needs to significantly invest in renewable energy and green infrastructure. HSBC has seen a huge surge in its activity as sustainability in Asia shifted gear in 2021.
The Asian Development Bank, or ADB, has launched a project to make cross-border security transactions in Asia and the Pacific more efficient and secure through the use of blockchain technology. Working with leading blockchain companies, ADB will seek to develop ways to directly connect central banks and securities depositories in the ASEAN Plus 3 region within a blockchain network. The region consists of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, plus Japan, the People's Republic of China, and the Republic of Korea. Directly connecting the institutions within a blockchain network could reduce both transaction costs and settlement risks. The possibility that securities are not exchanged within an agreed framework. According to the Business Mirror report, cross-border security transactions in the ASEAN Plus 3 region are currently processed through a global network of custodians and correspondent banks, which go through global centers in either the U.S. or Europe. As a result, intra-regional transaction settlements in ASEAN Plus 3 take at least 2 days due to time differences, as well as varying operating hours for markets within the same time zone. The project will be carried out in 2 phases, a designing phase to be completed by the end of March 2022 and a prototype phase scheduled for the second quarter of this year.
The Philippine Statistics Authority announced today a 7.7% growth in the country's gross domestic product, or GDP, in the fourth quarter of 2021, bringing the full year economic growth to 5.6%. The PSA said among the main contributors of the fourth quarter growth are manufacturing, wholesale and retail trade, repair of motor vehicles and motorcycles, and construction. The same industries also contributed the most to the annual growth, PCA said, noting that manufacturing had an 8.6% contribution, wholesale and retail trade, repair of motor vehicles and motorcycles with 4.2%, and construction with 9.8%. Among the major economic sectors, agriculture, forestry, and fishing, industry, and services all posted positive growth in the fourth quarter. Moreover, household final consumption expenditure grew by 7.5% in the last quarter.
And the ASEAN Coordinating Committee on Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises, or ACC MSME, launched the Asean Access Match, a business matching platform with a view to boosting trade within and beyond the ASEAN region. The Asean Access Match is a new feature of the Asean Access, the online portal for business information on trade and market access, in ASEAN launched in June 2021. Positioning itself as the flagship matchmaking platform in the region, Asean Access Match offers registered members of the Asean Access platform the opportunity to be a part of an international business community and create visibility for their businesses beyond the region. Take a look.
According to the World Trade Organization, beyond the regulatory barriers to trading goods and services, the additional challenges faced by SMEs include having limited access to information and distribution channels. Needless to say, having access to distribution networks is a crucial component for businesses, particularly in diversifying customer base domestically or internationally. With the rapid adoption of digital technology and wider internet penetration, it is only logical that ASEAN Access took this step to introduce the ASEAN Access Match, leveraging the new way of doing businesses that is not only efficient, but most importantly, cost-effective, especially for the SMEs.
Given that the world is still dealing with an evolving situation and the emergence of the new variants might still lead to restrictive measures that could hamper progress. But again, we all believe, like I've said before, the ASEAN region is now a lot more equipped today to manage these challenges. What's more, it also calls for much more creative measures and new approaches, hopefully that will allow us to reopen our economies fully and to continue the regional economic social progress in the new normal. Ladies and gentlemen, we have started 2022 on a good footing for international trade, especially with the advent of the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, RCEP, entry into force on the 1st of January, where Australia, Brunei Darussalam, Cambodia, China, Japan, Laos PDR, New Zealand, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam have all come together to build one of the biggest FTAs in the world. The RCEP, as you all know, is expected to stimulate the expansion of regional trade, investments, and further strengthen the resilience in the wider regional supply chain amongst the signatories. Just to recall, RCEP is the largest free trade agreement in the world connecting ASEAN and the major economies. It covers almost 30% of the world's population, 30% of global GDP, and a quarter of the global trade in goods and services, and almost 31% of global FDI inflows.
We all know that SMEs are important drivers for economies throughout the world, and the success of these SMEs is vital to the growth of the economy. However, when it comes to international trade, one key issue that businesses and especially SMEs face is the need to find new and relevant business contexts. This is where the public and private business support community can come in and make a difference. ASEAN Access Match is starting a new era of business matchmaking. It offers many benefits. First, instead of having to set up a special matchmaking platform for each individual event, on Match, public and private event organizers can run an unlimited number of matchmaking events of their choice for an unlimited period of time. Second, to make the process even more efficient for everyone involved, Match is primarily a virtual matchmaking platform. We have seen that we can all be productive and achieve a lot by connecting virtually online. So we're reducing the time and also the cost to meet a potential client or a new supplier. Match makes business matchmaking attainable for everyone. Third, as the platform is always growing, Match becomes an ever-evolving business community and critical mass of contacts in one place, something that both organizers and business alike can take advantage of. Lastly, On Match, businesses can showcase their products and technologies, not just during an event, but also afterwards. As long as they are members, their business and what they offer through Match will be promoted free of charge.
Asean Access is the official international trade information portal in ASEAN and is the tool you need to find contacts and trade information in other countries. Asean Access has information about cross-border trade, a service provider data bank with practical contacts and sector briefs covering various key industries. Asean Access Match, or simply Match, is a highlight feature that offers businesses even more internationalization support to actively help find foreign partners and opportunities, to introduce companies to new markets and industries, and to allow SMEs to showcase their products and technologies to the world. Match is a virtual matchmaking, networking, business and trade events platform free to use for all registered members of Asean Access. Match enables businesses to present their offers and requests for products and technologies to other businesses on the platform. Experience travel and time efficiency through virtual matchmaking events. Find new business partners and guaranteed common interest by pre-booked one-to-one meetings with other industry leaders and their companies. A perfect opportunity to discuss concrete business collaboration wherever you are in the world. Browse the Match Marketplace to view offers or requests from other companies. On the Match Marketplace, the product and technology showcases continue even between events, ensuring non-stop exposure for your business. Match market information events focus on each country and key sectors to show how to enter, where the opportunities lie, what are the trends, and how to successfully navigate the specific business landscape. All matchmaking and events take place on the same platform. Businesses only register once, create their personal and company profile, and can then sign up for any events with just one click of a button. Match is your business matchmaking, market information, business and technology showcase portal in ASEAN, all on one platform, available free of charge to registered members of Asean Access.
Thank you, Shirley, for keeping me company today here on ASEAN in Focus.
Thank you so much, Alma, and to everyone. And happy belated birthday to Little Miss Amy V. Orfilia, and best wishes to Krisha and Ash. And that's the latest news in the ASEAN region. Thank you for joining us today here in ASEAN in Focus. This is Shirley Baha from your Vietnam Bureau, and we live in.
And we'll see you back tomorrow, same time, same place, here on ASEAN in Focus. I'm Alma Angeles. Stay in the news because we live in interesting times.
Di masabi ang laman ng damdamin, kasi baka isipin mo ang dali-dali kong babae. Ako'y